So hello, Portia, just Portia.
Yeah.
So I would like to talk with you first of all about how you went from a Niagara Falls High School graduate to taking this incredible role on Broadway, which I don't know if that was a fast or slow evolution. How did it all start?
Well, I actually started it at Niagara Falls High School as part of the drama club, and under the guidance of Mr. Eckler. And then I went on to Niagara University, and then I transferred to Temple University.
I
Uh,
saw that
where-
in
yeah,
Philly. How did that
yeah,
work for you?
it was a bit of a shock, a culture shock, coming from a small town like Niagara Falls, where our buses stopped running at like 8 o'clock, and learning how to navigate mass transit, or being on a campus that was, in a city like
Very
Philadelphia.
urban campus where you are
Yeah,
enmeshed in the city. Yeah,
yeah,
small town
absolutely.
girl. That had to be something.
It was, it
Were
was.
you
It took me a
studying,
bit.
were you studying theater at the time?
Absolutely. I went from the theater program at Niagara University and transferred to the theater program at Temple University. And I finished out there. And then I moved here to New York, um, and had to sort of figure it out, and I usually tell my students that there's no classroom like actually being in the industry, being in the city and having to navigate it, because no matter what anyone tells you about their journey, your journey is your own, So I literally, um, I was living with a roommate, a friend, that I met while at the program at Temple University, and she was living here in the city. And so one day she was here and had been here. She had transferred to NYU, and she had an audition for a show, a play. And when she read the script, she was like, "This isn't me, but it's definitely you. Now, I don't know how we're going to go about getting you an audition." And I literally picked up the phone, called the casting office, which was Bernie Telsey's casting office, and just said, "Hey, it's Portia. Can I speak to Will?" And they were like, "Okay." And he picks up the phone. He's like, "Hello." And I just went into like this monologue of, "You don't know me, but you should. I've read this script. I'm perfect for this role. All you have to do is see me." And he was quiet and he was like, "Who are you?"
Is this for the role of
No, this was no. This is before, but this is how I actually got my foot in the door in the industry.
And what production
And
was that?
that production was called Saint Stanislaus Outside the House by Patrick Breen, and it was produced by Manhattan Class Company. And Bernie Telsey, who is one of the biggest casting agents, directors here in New York, was head of MCC, and their office cast me in that, and he sort of took me under his wing, and then I went on to become a part of a theater company, and I did a lot of work there and cut my teeth in many different areas, and just continued to audition. And so my first Broadway play was The Ride Down Mount Morgan. And then I went on to do, before the pandemic hit, I had done The Rose Tattoo with Marissa Tomei. And yeah, it's and The Ride Down Mount Morgan I did with Sir Patrick Stewart. And
That is like, they should have a parade in Niagara Falls.
well, I will tell you it, I always say never, if you believe it, you can manifest it, you can conceive it. If you can believe it, you can conceive it, you can achieve it, and it's this is my passion, storytelling. And so the role of Calpurnia, I, it was difficult because I remembered getting the assignment to read To Kill a Mockingbird in school, in grade school. And my mom and my grandmother were opposed to that. They were like, she will not be reading this book. No.
And that, and I might have done the same thing where I am for my
Yeah.
child.
Yeah. And it really hit home. And, once I found out my grandfather's backstory of having lost one of his brothers, like his brother just disappeared, was accused of an act like this, and then just disappeared and never heard from again, so and my mom had always been very active politically, so I didn't read it until I was in my 20s. And that's when I understood why they didn't want me to. I have to say it was a bit traumatizing.
It's still traumatizing. It's an interesting, I can't wait to get to the part about how this is impacting but I want to follow the line. So
yes,
you read it in your 20s and you found it to be traumatizing.
Yeah, I did. And so, after doing the rose tattoo, and then I had done another play that I fell in love with, and I was set up to go into another show. It had been like the first year, like right before the pandemic, that I had been working back to back to back, jobs overlapping. And that just had never been my trajectory. I huge benefit in my life, where 2003 was the last time I had to have a civilian job, and that I've been able to sustain my lifestyle through acting and directing and coaching.
That's pretty astounding.
Yeah. So
that's wonderful.
This it was beginning the end of August, I believe it was, that we found out Broadway was coming back, and there are many new plays that were being produced, and I was trying to figure out which production I really wanted to push for. And I had known about To Kill a Mockingbird because it had run, it had run 2 casts prior to this one, but I did not see the production.
Sure, because the book was traumatizing. So
yeah. And many of my friends who had gone to see it left feeling quite traumatized, or weren't able to sit through the entire production. And so when my agent literally, we happened to be in the same place, and he was like, so you had this audition. And I was like, okay. And when he was like, To Kill a Mockingbird, I was like, of all the plays that are going to be on Broadway, why is this one? Why this one? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go home. I'm going to work on this. And when I read the script that's been adapted by Aaron Sorkin, it hit me differently. Not that it wasn't a hard story, but that he had developed the characters of Calpurnia and Tom in a way that I could lean into them, that I could breathe into them. And then I started combing through the script and asking myself questions. If this, then this. Okay, if she's able to do this, why not this? Okay, and if this, then that means that. How do I build this relationship between Atticus and Calpurnia?
So let me just say this, because as I've been doing my research about Aaron Sorkin's adaptation, he has so broadened the role of Calpurnia that she becomes so much more than a bridge between two cultures for these kids and this family, but instead she almost becomes a voice of reason, I think.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
No, she does. She holds Atticus accountable, and she's sort of the voice of I don't like this, the voice of reason doesn't seem like that gives it enough weight.
Enough
You
weight.
know, because there is the scene between us where he's still, you know, these are our friends and our neighbors, and I know these people, and he's still unwilling to see the world through the eyes of Calpurnia. And not that he ever could, but when he delivers the news of Tom's death, and he sees the weight, the toll that it takes on her, how it breaks her, how it affects her, that he, you know, that he has to reckon with the truth.
You become the instrument for truth in this play. And
Yeah.
I still imagine people leaving it and feeling so still because of the results of that play, still feeling like, holy.
Yeah, I think though, what I coming, you know, going back into the rehearsal room rather than just being a replacement for Calpurnia, the entire cast, we went back through an entire rehearsal process. And one of the things that we kept doing was asking ourselves, what story are we telling? And it allowed I love my director. I love my director because he wasn't afraid to re-examine the storytelling.
And he won a Tony or an Emmy for that. Obviously, it was a Tony.
Bartlett Share. Yeah. And, you know, and that being willing to have a dialogue that felt very uncomfortable for some, you know, and saying, okay, then how do we address this? Because the script is the script. But as I kept going back to the script, I was like, it's right here. Like nothing has to shift. It's right here. And so my Calpurnia, as with any actor who takes on a role, you know, my Calpurnia is very different than the two that preceded me. But it's because of the two women who played Calpurnia before me that have allowed me the room to breathe into her the way that I do, you know?
It sounds like a defining role for you.
It is in a way because, and I didn't think it would be, you know, I resisted against playing these types of roles, you know, but this one, I really wanted to work. I really, really, really wanted to get back to work. And it is an American classic, you know, and I just kept thinking, you know, and before I knew that that this was going to be the process, I was like, if they are open to what I can walk in with and the storytelling, we can shift this in a way, you know. And little did I know that every cast member was on that same page.
It feels a little bit like a miracle because this play is so big for our world today. It's so important in terms of kind of putting it straight square into people's faces about all the issues of race and discrimination. I mean, it's impossible to think we're still dealing with this, but of course we are.
But we are, you know, and it's one of the things that I continue to say because, you know, sometimes in dialogue, you'll hear people say, you know, post George Floyd or post January 6th. And I have to stop and say, well, for you, it's post George Floyd. And perhaps this is an enlightening moment for you. And for that, I'm glad. However, for my entire lifetime, for my mother's entire lifetime, and her mother, and her mother, and her mother, this has been the world that we have lived in. And so it's great. And I think it's wonderful that now, especially with the pandemic has made us, you know, tear this Band-Aid off. that you sort of can't put your head under the covers anymore or hide behind the hustle and bustle, because we were all made to be still, and take in what was happening in the world. And it's made it a bit divisive for some, but I think that what this story does is it goes, oh, right, this could actually be 2021 yesterday, could have actually happened absolutely yesterday.
Absolutely.
And so I think it begs to ask, what do you stand for?
Wow. I have to ask you this. How do you share? Because Calpurnia she is like the housekeeper and the in the mother's role, but not really the mother, and has avoided,
Well, I think she is. I mean, because what is mothering?
of course she is. No. And but
Yeah,
she
not the biological mother, no,
exactly.
but she's raised Scout. Scout is 8, at this point in the story, and the biological mom has been deceased for 7 years. So she's been raising her for,
She
since she was.
clearly has all the power in the household. I'm not diminishing her role. What I'm saying is that I'm curious as to what you feel like you share with her as you step into the role of her. What parts are actually Portia as well as Calpurnia, and what parts do you have to imagine to life?
I think remembering the time frame, the time period, and so that my rhythms aren't too contemporary,
Right.
that my gestures aren't contemporary, but as far as the story and the love of family, just the love of family, whether that's the family that she's raising,
Right.
the family of her community, and how to live in her truth in both of those families.
Because there are scenes in the play where she takes the children to her church. I
Well,
believe
that's in the book.
that's in the book.
That's in the
Is
book.
there an
That's not in
aspect
this.
of that in the play?
No, but I think what you get in our courtroom scenes, is that there are moments when they're both next to me, and there's always affection. Like she's not afraid to show signs of affection
Be
with
the
them.
mother.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Whether it's to hold them, to comfort them, that's was really important, but to make it from a genuine place and not this, I'm the housekeeper, or, this sort of mammy-ish role.
I
It's
haven't
not
been
that at
able
all.
to see the play, but what I do know is the importance of her role as the mother figure. I think
Yeah.
she is the bridge to help the
Yeah,
children.
and she co-parents with
Atticus.
Atticus, and so she also shows Atticus a side, she reveals a side of the kids that he is unable to see,
Yeah.
you
And
know.
yes, I was reading that there's a scene in Aaron Sorkin's adaptation of this book and this play in this movie, is that there's a scene apparently that is your scene where you literally bring the audience to tears. Can you tell me which one that is, or can you give me?
It's the scene where it's after the courtroom, and it's after Tom has been found guilty, and it's the scene where she's told that he's been shot, that he's dead.
The one you
Uh,
described to me earlier.
yes, yes, and so that's where the two, Atticus and Calpurnia, really, and I don't want to say butt heads, but I feel it's where she releases, the hurt and the pain and this lack of wanting to see the truth, his naivete in this community that he lives in, that he can't see these people for who they are.
Because the issue is that he believes there is good in everyone.
Yes. And his son actually says he doesn't believe that to be true, that there isn't good in everyone, that he can point it out by pointing to this man who, Bob Buell, who has set this whole thing in motion by making this claim, and that while you can see the good, you're able to see the good. Why? Because we come from different worlds. And if it's okay, I think that if it's okay for me to be in your home, for me to take care of your children, for me to be the co-parent to your children, that we have dialogue at times, like you care about my feelings and the way things affect me, because you notice when I won't speak to you. And that's a sort of dynamic, that doesn't necessarily happen between, a housekeeper and her boss.
It clearly is evidence of their co-partnership in this family.
Absolutely. And so if you can accept me in those roles, do you or do you not? I think the question is, do you or do you not see me as a human being and worthy of respect? And so as he continues to say, well, he tried to run, and she's like, that doesn't make sense. Why can you not see this?
Wow. When I think about the way you're describing it, your role has really kind of become a centerpiece of the production. I just can't imagine how important that is. What are the kinds of things your family and friends are saying?
Well, they're really, at first I was a little bit nervous, because the theater world can be very critical, and so I was a little bit nervous. But again, because of the atmosphere that was created in the rehearsal room through the rehearsal process, and that the entire cast, I have to say that I keep coming back to that, because that's what makes all of this possible, is that every single member of the cast plays such an important role in allowing this to take the shape that it's been taking,
and these are pretty serious, seriously lauded actors. Jeff Daniels did he win a Tony for this role? I know
no, I don't think he was nominated though. Celia won for Scout. And so they were very open to how different my approach to Calpurnia was. They were like, oh, wow, okay, well, if this, then that. And so it allowed us to like breathe into scenes differently. But folks who have come to see it, are actually able to stay through the entire play. And there was a period
you bring to that role.
I think so. It's also because Bart wasn't afraid to sort of reimagine the scenes, and to say, okay, perhaps I didn't lock in to this part of the storytelling, and now I'm able to revisit that. And, as a multi-hyphenated artist, and I direct a little bit, it was amazing to me to see how he could actually change an entire scene just by the staging of it.
Wow.
And it was like, oh, and if I move these pieces like this, what does this mean? And reimagining the very end, and bringing full circle the story of Tom Robinson, not just letting it go, where you have this event that happens and then you just move on as if nothing happened.
And
So
your outrage at the end as a performer, your outrage and the energy that you bring to that almost seems to do what you've just described, at least to me, having not seen that on
yeah,
Broadway.
but I mean, physically being able to bring back the character of Tom Robinson so that we don't forget, because, the scene that I have is followed by another scene, because the story, is actually being told by Scout trying to figure out the death of Bob Ewell, like the story of him falling on his knife. And so it has to come full circle to wrap that up. And so what was happening was that, people like, oh, so wait a minute. We have this horrible event happen, and then we just move on. And so what Bart was able to do just through the staging was to let us not forget what brought us here.
Wow.
And I think it's really beautiful, and it's really moving, and it's really, really necessary.
Gosh, I'm trying to imagine you having turned this role down, seeing as how
I know, right?
Your mother's initial reaction to the book.
Right. No, but my mother, I think she always knew the importance of the book because she was an avid reader, and an English major, so she knew the importance of the book. But I think at that time, she just thought it was inappropriate for me in the fifth, sixth grade.
Probably because you were too young to have that kind of
Absolutely.
And declare this cultural icon of a book, and to have a young girl read that and presume that is the global view.
Right.
Yeah, I would have protected my children from that as long as possible. But yes, and then you read it in your 20s where it was more appropriate, and still went like, okay, no. And then now you're here.
Right. Now we're here, and I am honored to be stepping into this role and breathing life into Calpurnia. I'm blessed that when I look at my body of work as an actor, I don't, and I say this to my students, I don't take roles that would make me want to drink, drug, or kill myself.
Excellent advice, I think.
I don't. And there
No
were
take
times,
roles or jobs that make them do
right. You shouldn't,
relationship. That's great advice. I love it.
don't. You have to know what your instrument can handle. And every job isn't mine. Do you know what I mean? Like that, what's for me is for me. But I also have to know, I'm building my legacy. And so when I look back on my body of work, I want it to reflect, the human that I am. I want it to reflect all parts of me, some good, some not so good, some funny, some sad, that, which is enlightened, that which is broken. I want it to reflect all parts of me, so it's always important to me to always comb through a script and go, how does this sit with me? How do I feel?
Looking ahead, what is your dream role?
I always say, I don't know until it comes to me. The last time someone asked me that, and I was like, it isn't written yet. And then a young woman named Zora Howard wrote a piece called Stew that I don't think I started reading it. And when I finished, I was like, I don't think I took a breath. And it was a small production, but it was a runner-up. It was a finalist for the Pulitzer. Wow. And so there it was. It was like it had not been written, and then there it was, and it came across my my desk. So I don't know. There are pieces that are classics that I'd love to revisit. That are actually coming to Broadway now. And so I'm really excited about that, but I'm in this piece here. So you know,
That
but
makes,
that I'm happy that they're being remounted. You know, like the one piece that I'm speaking of is for Color Girls, um, which has been one of my favorite pieces at Choreopoem. And it's coming to Broadway. And I'm really excited that that is going to be shared with a Broadway audience.
oh my God, so many hopeful, optimistic things to look forward to then for
Well,
you.
yeah,
This. Let me
yeah.
ask you this. You've mentioned twice teaching. I didn't realize you were teaching. Are you teaching acting students? What do you teach?
I do. I do workshops, and I actually was going to be teaching at a conservatory in Virginia. And literally the day before they finalized their contract to present to me was when I was offered Calpurnia.
Oh,
And so I was like, I had to turn it down.
wow.
But, you know, eventually, you know, I don't know that I necessarily want to go into an institution of higher learning to teach uh, because you're bound,
Yes, you are.
you know, and I like the freedom that I have with my students when I go into theater companies or I hold my own workshops um, that I have with them. Um, and I continue my relationship. Some of the students actually from Shenandoah came down this past weekend to see the show, and we were outside for hours, just you know, talking about the crafting of the character. And
What is Shenandoah? Is that a?
it's a Shenandoah University in Virginia. It's a conservatory.
Got it. That's wonderful. Has your mother seen this play?
Not yet.
Wow.
She's gonna come down now that I've been extended through May. Thank goodness, because my class reunion, I'll be back in Niagara Falls for my class reunion in August.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So she gets to, yeah, so she gets to come down in April around my birthday and celebrate that and see the show.
And what do you think her feelings are about this book and this play now?
Well, I think she's really excited for me. You know, I'm really, really happy. And as long as I'm happy, my mom's happy. You know, the best support system that you could ask for.
Now, I just need some Niagara Falls details.
Sure.
What's your mom's name?
Maddie, Mattie,
And,
Maddie L. Cox Johnson.
and your dad?
My dad, Henderson Johnson, was from Texas. He wasn't from Niagara Falls.
But you grew up in Niagara Falls?
I grew up in Niagara, born and raised in Niagara Falls.
What neighborhood?
I was on 10th and Niagara, between
Wow.
Niagara and East Fall Street
Do you,
on
is,
the east
was it
side.
a good childhood? Do you remember it being a wonderful place?
Was, you
Or-
know, the city has changed a lot, a lot, a lot. And I'm actually in a dialogue with a lot of the members that are on the reunion committee about what we can do and bring
Right.
to the city, and you know, developing a scholarship, you know, and the arts, bringing arts back to the city, because it's what I was raised on. It's what gave me voice. It gave me purpose and hope. And so I want to do the same. And so there are projects that I have in mind that I, you know, have been talking about. But yeah, you know, when you're a kid, you know, it's a different filter, you
Yes.
know, very different, you know, and being aware of like the hardships and um, sort of racial tensions happening in the world, because it happens in the world, you know, you have to walk in a certain way, you know, but then also the freedoms of being able to do plays or just be outside and create, you know, was very different.
Yes,
You
I do have
know,
to say Niagara Falls is very slowly coming back. I'm sure you've heard word of that, and um, there are lots of wonderful things happening, but
Absolutely.
the idea of you bringing some of your grace back to the place you were born and raised is a lovely idea. I love to hear things
Yeah.
like that. So what class did you graduate from?
82.
Oh,
And
that's
I keep telling them, I'm like, do not put 40 years on any, do not put that. So, but I'm really excited. It's so lovely to reconnect, with my classmates, that, and have a sort of pick up in an adult way, and not make is because it doesn't seem like a new connection, but different, that we're all adults, but that there's still this connection between us,
something very, very special.
and that we've lost so many members of our class, so many, that it was really important to make this reunion really, really, really special. It's like, let's get dressed, let's be fancy, let's pamper ourselves, let's do something, just to celebrate life, because that's what we should be doing. We should be celebrating every single day and moment that we get.
That's wonderful. And what do you have to say about the young actor and actress hopefuls that are living in Niagara Falls these days and hoping to someday have an opportunity like yours?
That it's all possible. It begins and ends with you.
That's beautiful.
It does. It really does. If you have the heart for it, because it's not easy. There are more no's than there are yeses
in all of life.
Yes, and sometimes the amount of no's, the rejection, they say don't take it personally, and I say it can be. But then what do you do with that? How do you turn an obstacle into an opportunity? And read. I always say that. What are you reading? What are you reading? What are the stories you want to tell?
Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Thank you so much for talking.
Thank you. Thank you for this time.
It's such a treat. And to talk about this play and to talk about how you landed in it is something I think the people of Niagara Falls will really enjoy hearing about. So
thank you so much for taking the time. I'm glad you reached out to me.
I am glad as well. I would have hated to miss this.